Morning, everyone. I will be continuing my presentation about labor turnover as my second topic. First, we have for labor, the analysis of the numbers of people leaving the organization or labor turnover wastage provides data for use in supply forecasting so that calculations can be made on the number of people lost who may have to be replaced. And that is where the so-called exit interviews in companies or organizations are most beneficial, which I will be discussing in the next slides. The analysis will indicate whether any action is required to improve retention rates. So itong analysis of labor turnover is important dahil it will determine kung kailangang mag-formulate ng actions or remedies yung company in order to retain yung mga existing human resources or employees nila within the organization and to avoid further attrition. So, di ko alam kung maaalala niyo pa rin yung last presentation ko where I mentioned the word attrition. So, to review, since yung attrition is a term that will mostly be used in this topic, attrition means yun yung pag-leave ng mga employees within a company for different kind of reasons. And ito yung mga reasons na yun, I will be discussing din naman dun sa mga last slides nitong presentation nito. Next, we have prompt further investigations to establish underlying causes and identify remedies. Kasi if there is a continuous rate of labor turnover sa organization or sa company, analyzing it would be helpful in order to know the reasons or yung mga root causes kung bakit ito nangyayari, and eventually that the HR department can use this in order to formulate or makabuo ng mga solutions in order to solve it. The significance of labor turnover. According to IRS 2000 or Internal Revenue Service, rates of labor turnover provides a graphic illustration of the turbulence within an organization. High rates of attrition can stabilize a business and demotivate those who attempt to maintain levels of service and output against a background of vacant posts, inexperienced staff, and general discontent. It is significant or important to analyze the rates of labor turnover since this will show the effects of attrition or yung pag-alis ng mga employees. Since it will not only affect the company or the organization as a whole, but lalo na yung mga individual employees within the company in a way that they could be demotivated or made-demotivate sila seeing the low-level productivity within their departments or dun sa buong company na talaga. That is because of the vacant position dahil nga dun sa pag-alis ng mga employees or dahil sa attrition. Then, of course, sometimes, inexperience yung mga existing staff, lalo na kapag yung kakapasok pa lang ng mga bagong employees within dun sa particular department or dun sa company. And also, other factors na pwedeng mag-cause ng discontent sa kanila as an employee of the company. Another is the significance of labor turnover, and this is according to the CIPD 2000 or Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development. Turnover may be a function of negative job attitudes, low job satisfaction combined with an ability to secure employment elsewhere. For example, the state of the labor market. On the other hand, turnover is a normal part of the organizational functioning, and while excessively high turnover may be dysfunctional, a certain level of turnover is to be expected and can be beneficial to an organization. So here, the point of the Chartered Institute of Personal Development in terms of the significance of labor turnover, they in-emphasize nila yung reasons behind turnover and how this turnover is inevitable or um, hindi maiiwasan because it is just a normal part in a organizational functioning and it can be expected or it has to be expected. But also, they emphasize the need to take action if merong excessively or abnormal rate of turnover because pag nangyari ito, then that means there is a problem that has to be resolved within their company. Maybe they are overlooking or hindi nila napapansin yung mga sort of problems na hindi nila nakikita na nagiging root cause pala ng turnover ng mga employees nila. The next section of my presentation involves the topic on the methods of measurement for labor turnover. There are a number of ways of measuring labor turnover, and first we have the labor turnover index. So labor turnover index, we have the calculation number of fevers in a specified period, usually 1 year or annually, multiplied to 100, then divided to the average number of employees during the same period. So, if ika-calculate yung turnover index within a company, then ang gagamitin na what do you call this, variables for the calculation are similarly yung numbers of leavers at yung average number of employees sa parehong year. Halimbawa ay for this year, for year um, um, labor, yung ang tawag ito? Sa pag, sa pagka sa pagkakaintindi ko po is yung labor turnover is yung parang ratio between yung mga employees that leave the company and those that are replaced within the company po. Bali yung pong mga new employees in ratio to na umalis. Yes po. Yes po, sir. Another method of analyzing labor turnover that is particularly useful in for human resource planners is the survival rate. Employees engaged within a certain period who remain with the organization after so many months or years of service. So, for instance, an analysis of trainees na nakatapos ng training sa isang company may show that after 2 years, 10 of the original cohort or group of 20 trainees are still within the company. Then this shows a survival rate of 50% since yung number of trainees ay nagkalahati over that 2 years. Rinig po ako na maayos? Hello?
Yes po.
Ay,
Yes po.
thank you. There's also what we call survival curve, which you can see right here. Yung curve na yan, ay wala lang akong pointer. Basta yung curve na yan. And in this curve, we can see itong continuous downward slope in this part as the x-axis, no slope gets longer. Itong nasa baba. And this indicates the time or years ahead of the organization. Itong curve na ito, it shows that if human resources don't do, say, survival rate, as for the example that I gave earlier, yung 50%, then yung half ng number ng mga recruits in any 1 year would totally be lost over the succeeding years. Okay. Half-life index. Half-life index defined as the time taken for a cohort or group or of starters to reduce to half its original size through wastage, which is in the example given in the table of is a total of 5 years. Comparisons can so dun sa saan nga ako? Yung sa entry cohort A dito sa first column. For example, dun sa entry cohort A, from a total original number of 40, dun sa nakalagay is original strength, it is halved into 20 within the 5 years. We can see na year 5, yun nasa last part. And of course, yung average survival rate nitong particular cohort na ito is decreasing correspondingly from a 100% to 83% in year 1, then 71% in year 2, and so on, hanggang sa 50% foreseen to occur in the year 5. Next, we have, wait lang po. Next, we have the stability index. If the half-life index is a simple concept of survival rate analysis, this stability index naman po would be the improvement of turnover index, which is yung first method of measurement na minention ko. And the formula for stability index is number with 1 year service or more times 100 divided over the number of employees over 1 year ago. The stability index is considered by many to be an improvement of the turnover index. So here in the stability index, we can calculate the tendency and yung probability for the employees na matagal na sa kanilang mga jobs to stay in the company. And as a result, it can also show yung rate of necessity or need to employ. The index provides an indication of the tendency for longer employees to remain with the company and therefore shows the degree to which there is continuity of employment. But dito din sa stability index, it is said that it can also be misleading. So bakit? That is because the index will not reveal the vastly different situations na meron within a company or department na may high proportion of long-serving employees in comparison dun sa mga majority of employees na short service. Meaning, itong stability index only focuses or emphasizes on long service employees and it does not consider other types of employees gaya ng mga employees under um, job orders, casual, seasonal, at yung iba pang mga employees under sa mga employment na hindi full-time or permanent. Lastly is the choice of measurement. It is difficult to avoid using the conventional employee labor turnover index as the easiest and most familiar of all methods of measurement, but it needs to be supplemented with some measure of stability. An analysis of turnover or wastage as part of a human resource planning exercise requires detailed information on the length of service of leaders to identify problem areas and to provide a foundation of supply forecast. So to conclude this part on methods of measurement, all of the methods na minention ko in the past slides are all useful in measuring labor turnover. Since all these methods are formulated or binuo for this particular purpose for the human resource department. But still, it should always be remembered that that there are several factors that has to be considered in calculating labor turnover and to always make use of detailed information during the process. Now moving on towards the topic for reasons for turnover. As I've mentioned in the earlier slides, exit interviews are important in analyzing turnover. An analysis of the reason for leaving derived from exit interviews na ginagawa ng HR department will be providing useful information on which to base retention plans. And ano nga ba yung retention plans? And yung retention plans na yun are those plans na ginagawa ng HR of the organization in order to retain yung mga existing human resource nila. Exit interviews are those that determine why people are leaving or why employees are leaving in the company and not to persuade them to stay. So yung exit interviews are only to know kung bakit umaalis yung mga employees nila within the company. Through exit interviews, companies can also stand the turnover of employees. So here, we have some reasons behind labor turnover. First, we have more pay or better compensation. So baka yung mga employees are not contented in the pay that they are getting in their jobs. That's why they are leaving the company kasi baka may nakahanap silang ibang opportunities in the other companies na nagbibigay ng better compensation or salaries. Next, we have better prospects or career move. And in this reason, ito yung pwedeng yung better prospects can be moving to another organization or company within or outside the country or pwede rin namang moving to a completely different field or industry. Next is more security or what we call tenure. more opportunity to develop skills, better working conditions, since another reason, kagaya nung na-mention kanina is yung about sa turbulence. Baka yung mga employees are not um, satisfied with the conditions that they are getting in the company. Baka may mga problema sila sa iba nilang mga colleagues or baka sa mga higher executives na experience nila kaya umaalis sila dun sa kanilang job. Poor relationships with manager or team leader, as I've said, poor relationship with colleagues, bullying or harassment, personal reasons such as pregnancy, illness, moving away from area, and etc. The cost of labor turnover. Labor turnover can be costly, and the following factors should be considered, including first, the living cost for leavers, and this includes payroll cost and personal administration of the leavers. And when there are leavers, may need, of course, para mag-replace ng employees, and this process is under the direct cost of recruiting replacements such as advertising them openings, interviewing. So yung interviewing is yung pag-interview ng prospect recruits, testing, and others. Third, recruitment processes can also be timely. And itong buong process na ito can be complex, which is why meron opportunity cost of time spent by the HR and line managers in recruitment. Next, we have the direct cost of introducing replacements, including induction course, cost of induction manuals, and etc. So, ano yung induction course? Induction course is yung form of introduction training na nag-a-allow doon sa mga employees na nandun na talaga sa company and yung mga new hired employees to learn the ropes or settle into their new job position and get started in their jobs. So, yung cost of induction manuals naman is yung mga resources that they need in that training. Next, we have the opportunity cost of time spent by HR and managers in introducing new starters. So, yun ay connected dun sa previous na cost of labor turnover. Next is the direct cost of training replacements in the necessary skills. Kasi syempre yung mga newly hired employees, they have to gain the essential skills that is needed for their job, and that is done through trainings. Next, we have opportunity cost of time spent by line managers and other staff in providing training. Since yung mga line managers are accountable sa kanilang mga department, they provide training along with other needed staff, which can also cost their time. Na yung time na yun sana is magagamit nila in doing other functions. Of the input from living before the place, which is yun ay in terms of contribution, output, sales, customer satisfaction, support, and iba pa. And lastly, we have the loss arising from reduced input from new starters until they are fully trained. Because as new starters, sinabi ko kanina, they are still subject to be trained and enhance their skills for better performance in their respective jobs, thus increasing productivity in their positions. Lastly, we have benchmarking labor turnover. Labor turnover rates provide a valuable means of benchmarking the effectiveness of HR policies and practices in organization. That is because if merong suspectable turnover rates within the organization, then it is always necessary to review if yung practices na ina-employ within the company are indeed effective or not for only for the employees or workers but for everyone in the organization. And lastly, though they po, hindi ko po fully sure pero may nabasa po ako dun sa module na yung compare po siya sa ibang comparable organizations. Tama ba? Tama po yun, sir? Apo. And lastly, though they do not tell the whole story, but if turnover is significantly higher than in comparable organizations, gaya ng sinabi ko, this should stimulate action to investigate why this is the case and to do something about it. So, kagaya nung sinabi dun sa significance ng labor turnover, if I'm right, is yung sa CIPD, kahit normal part siya ng organizational functioning, when benchmarking labor turnover is done and it is comparably different or too high compared sa ibang mga organizations in the same field, then that means there is a problem unforeseen and there is a necessity or it is a solution or remedy for it. And that is why analyzing labor turnover is a vital action or vital move for HR resource partners or the HR department of an organization as a whole. And that's the end for my topic.